even folks who have it will say, well, I don't want to use it because I don't want my rates to go up. Your rates do not go up, because in order for us to even tap into that, we must prove to your insurance that you were not at fault.
We're good to rock. Another potential episode of not recording an episode because we almost had a technical error, but we are good to go. So, Adversity Kings, we got a quick episode today with Mr. Is it Mo?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Rhammadan.
Mo, what is it?
Rhammadan.
Mo Rhammadan.
Yep.
Let's go. And you are an injury lawyer, correct?
Correct.
Let's go. How long you been doing that?
Since 2011, came out of law school, started my law practice right away. So
Own law practice, or did you work for another practice?
No, I was sworn in November 14, 2011. December 1st, 2011, I signed my lease and started being on my own.
Let's go. Dope. Yeah, for sure. Let's go. Part of the podcast. So we got somebody in here checking something right now. But life safety. Let's crack a cigar and start smoking in here real quick. Awesome, Mel. So you started in 2011, passed the bar, all that. And where'd you go to school?
I started community college, kind of fucked around for a little bit. Then I got into DePaul. I actually applied to DePaul as a joke. I didn't think I'd get in.
Yeah.
I got in. DePaul is kind of where things turned around for me. I met my mentors there. And then I got denied by every law school except one, Michigan State College of Law, gave me a conditional acceptance. Basically, I had to go there early. If I did well, they would let me in. Did well, and went to Michigan State College of Law.
Let's go. Dope. Where were you born and raised?
So I was actually born in Jerusalem, Palestine. Came when I was...
Jerusalem. Is there a Jerusalem, Palestine too?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very political question.
I know. I was like, in my mind, I was like,
So
I probably should not ask this.
We could keep it at Jerusalem, but to us it's Jerusalem, Palestine. That's actually, so funny story about that. My passport only says Jerusalem. There was actually a U.S. Supreme Court case that said they're not allowed to put Palestine or Israel on there, so it just says Jerusalem. So technically I'm a stateless immigrant if you want to look at it that way. But my parents were citizens. My dad was already here, so I came when I was maybe 3. Grew up in the south side of Chicago, and then we moved around a lot. I never went to a school longer than 3 years, so I don't really have one neighborhood. We moved around probably my entire life.
Wow. And what was the moving around a result of?
Low income, no money, just kind of apartment to apartment, trying to find a better
Do you have siblings?
neighborhood. Yeah, I'm the youngest of 6.
Youngest of 6? Who were you closest to growing up?
Out of my siblings?
Out of your life?
It's a good question. Depends on what part of my life.
Who was most influential then? Like, what season of your life? What person? Who was that kind of put you in a position you are now?
Kathy May, my professor at DePaul, is arguably...
Is that going to set an alarm off by chance? Okay, cool.
I'd say Kathy May. She was my professor at DePaul. She's the one that kind of took me in and just basically taught me the game of life, taught me how to do things. She was my first real mentor. She basically changed my life. I mean, prior to that, it was probably my brother because we moved around a lot. We were always together. But outside of family, Kathy was my rock star. That's my girl. That's my number one.
Yeah? Well, closer than like mom, dad, and siblings?
It's different, right? Family's always there. That's why I said outside of family. I mean, growing up, like I said, because we moved around a lot, I'd say me and my other brother, because we were closer in age.
Yeah.
My parents were immigrants. My dad was always working. My mom was taking care of the kids. So as far as being close, growing up, I'd say my brother. But, as I grew up and he started kind of doing his own thing and working and all that, I'd say outside of family, Kathy was definitely my number one.
Do you guys still have family back in Palestine?
I do. I have an uncle back home, yeah.
Is he safe?
Yeah, he's in the West Bank. I mean, safe as safe can be.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's, I mean, as far as we know, they're good right now.
Okay, dope. So what made you know that you wanted to get into law? Like, you're in high school, like...
No, I wasn't one of those type that grew up that wanted to be an attorney. I didn't think I would. I mean, where we grew up and how we grew up, we didn't grow up around attorneys. We didn't grow up around educated people. So it wasn't really something that I grew up with. I think it was when I was in community college. I always worked, I always hustled, I always found some way to make some income. So I was kind of just working, and I got to a point I'm like, I know if I leave community college, I'm never going back to school. So I said, if I'm gonna stay here, literally, I was like, I'm either gonna be, if I'm gonna do all this, it's gotta be worth it. So I says, I'm either going to be a doctor or a lawyer. I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. I hated science. I knew that would never happen. I didn't want to go to that much school. And I started considering law, even though it was kind of a crazy idea at the time. You know, I had a 1.8 GPA at community college, so it wasn't like, you know, I was prepped for law school. But, you know, I always felt that growing up, we never had access to attorneys. And I felt the legal world neglected, you know, people that I grew up with. And I felt that if I can go and get a law degree and come back and be that voice for people that I grew up with, that was kind of my biggest motivation. And to just kind of, you know, build from the future generations of my family. I figured if I go to law school, it would give me the opportunity to kind of break those chains and allow my kids to have a better life in the future. So I figured someone at some point in our family tree kind of had to break that educational you know, mold and do it. And I felt if I was the one to do it, I could change the trajectory of my family tree going forward.
You have kids?
I have 4, yes.
4 kids? That's so. And what do they do? What ages?
I got 7. I got 3. I got a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn.
And a newborn. Okay, awesome.
I got 2 girls, 2 boys.
Let's go. So, how's family life for you?
Love it. It's my whole life. Everything revolves around that. You know, I've had to try to balance my career, my ambitions, and owning my own law practice with my family, but I've done a better job of it recently. You know, luckily I have a very supportive wife who understands I'm very ambitious, and this is my prime, and you know, but it's a balance, and it's an evolving balance.
Yeah.
I don't believe in balance. I don't think there's no such thing as real 50-50 balance.
No, there isn't.
But it's an evolving balance, right? Sometimes you give more to your family, sometimes you give more to your work, and you try to neglect either. But, you know, I found balance in different ways. I rarely ever miss bedtime. I don't make appointments or schedule anything around bedtime. I don't miss dinner. You know, I hug and kiss my kids every day before school.
Yeah.
So I find those little things, but...
were your parents very traditional, or were they Muslims?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so...
They're more cultural traditional than religious traditional.
Okay, so that's my curiosity, because I'd say 30% of my company is probably, what would you say, John? 20 to 30% are Muslim? 20?
Yeah.
Probably 20%?
20,
Yeah, we probably got like 20,
I'd say 20 to 25%.
yeah, we probably got like 15, 20, maybe even 30 Muslims. And I'm always curious because some will be a lot more, it's just like Christianity or any other religion. A little more strict, a little more loose.
Correct.
Some like just not.
We were kind of in the middle. Again,
Yeah.
ours, you know, even with religion, culture influences your religious beliefs more than people want to admit that they do.
Yeah.
So, you know, we weren't uber religious, but I mean, we were, you know, God-fearing, you know, believe in Muslims, we fast, we pray, stuff like that. But, you know, we weren't at the mosque every day, right? Like,
Yes.
it wasn't one of those families.
Hijab. For the ladies?
Yes, my mom and my sisters do wear it. My wife does too. My wife was wearing it before we met. So,
And for men, is it a kifu?
I mean, the keffiyeh is not,
Keffiyeh?
or a kufi. Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
never wore one, so
Okay.
I was never that religious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Understandable. I'm always curious because I have a lot of respect, and it's almost driven me to have even more inspiration in regard to my vision of there's so many immigrants that are in Chicago. Being out here for 3 years now, running a business out here and building around the diversity out here has inspired me to have more unity with my household. And more so in regard to I want my mom to, you know, essentially be in my house, which like most American men are not like that. But I've been around so many immigrants and they're like, we take care of our mothers until
Yeah, we don't believe in nursing homes.
Yeah.
That's like a big taboo in our community. We just don't believe in it.
I love that.
As someone who sues nursing homes for a living, do not put your family in a nursing home. I can tell you from an attorney who sues them regularly, nursing homes are just terrible places.
abusive, and they can liquidate essentially all your assets. It's one of our sales pitches here with life insurance is I do not believe they can get a hold of a majority of life insurance products unless they are like invested into the market. We sell a very simple product, just whole life and term life. And I believe, especially if it's put into a trust, the nursing home doesn't have access to it. Is that correct?
It just depends on your structure, your situation, how you have it structured. But, you know, a lot of people in nursing homes don't really have family members, and that's when things go astray.
Yeah.
When they don't have someone with a power of attorney or someone to look after them. Or, I mean, they might have family that don't check in on them. You know, so I always tell people, if you do have someone in a nursing home, check in on them regularly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of neglect. There's a lot of fraud. So if you don't check up on them,
Yeah.
sometimes they're scared to say something. And another tip I tell people is when you go visit them, tell the staff to go away because your family member is not going to want to say anything in front of the staff because the moment you leave, the staff's going to have
Start beating
retribution.
them or something.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I always tell people when you go visit, get them in a private area and then ask them, check their body for marks. Bed bugs are huge. Bed bites are a huge thing that we see in nursing homes. We see a lot of abuse. So I always tell people, literally physically check them when you go there.
What would you say is your large percentage of business generated from? Is it nursing homes? Is it car accidents?
Auto by far.
Car accidents?
Yeah.
Hit and run? Do you have?
No, I mean, just basic auto accidents. There's a lot more auto accidents than people think there is. They happen daily. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, both from the insurance company side, from the law side. It's a huge industry.
Who's entitled to money? Is that like your biggest clientele? They'd hit you up and be like, "Hey, I was in an auto accident. I think I might be."
We only
entitled."
help people that are injured. So basically, how it happens is if you're in an auto accident, and we get calls all the time, "Hey, I got in a car accident, but I feel good." We can't help you. But if you're involved in an auto accident and you are hurt or you're in pain, by law, insurance companies have to account for all your bills and records, pain and suffering, lost wages, and any losses incurred due to the accident. So we step in. You'll be surprised how many people do not have access to doctors. So we help them with that if they need. Most people have a primary care provider, but that's it. But some of these injuries need an ortho, they need a neurosurgeon, they need a neurologist, they need pain specialists. Most people don't even know what those are. So we help them with that. We also help people get treatment without paying out of pocket. They work on a medical lien. So they're much more intricate and detailed than people really think that they are.
And how can people protect themselves from essentially, like when it comes to the auto accidents, from not getting sued?
Have insurance.
Yeah.
That's your best bet, is having insurance.
How many people really drive without insurance?
More than you think.
Yeah.
Way more than you think. And you also got to understand, insurance companies are scumbags, right? So they're going to find every loophole to deny coverage. So someone might be paying on their policy, but if, let's say, their license is expired or not valid, there's a clause in there that says the insurance company could deny coverage because their license wasn't valid. Or if they weren't a designated driver, they're now not going to cover it. So they look for anything and everything to wiggle their way out of paying their policy out. What I tell people, the biggest way to protect yourself is you can't prevent accidents. That's why they're called accidents, right? It's what you have in your coverage that really can help or hurt you. So a lot of people don't have uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, which is very crucial because we get a lot of people who are involved in an accident who are hurt, but the person that hit them don't have coverage. So if you don't have underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, you're screwed. You're done. You have no way of getting your stuff paid. So that is the biggest detriment that we see, is people who get hit by other people who don't have coverage.
And so essentially, if you have in your coverage underinsured, or is it non-insured?
So there's uninsured and underinsured. So uninsured motorist coverage, that covers if, let's say you hit me, you don't have any coverage.
Yeah.
My uninsured will now kick in and cover anything that I need covered, medical and property damage. Underinsured means, let's say you hit me, the Illinois state minimum is $25,000. Let's say you hit me and I have $100,000 worth of medical bills, but your policy is only $25,000. Your insurance company is only going to give us $25,000. Underinsured means if I have $100,000 underinsured, my insurance will cover the difference now. Yeah. So that's underinsured motorist coverage. And we run in those situations all the time with people who don't have uninsured and underinsured. And the one thing I want to clear up is the biggest misconception. Even folks who have it will say, "Oh, I don't want to use it because I don't want my rates to go up." Your rates do not go up, because in order for us to even tap into that, we must prove to your insurance that you were not at fault. And if you're not at fault legally, they're not allowed to raise your rates if you're not at fault. but a lot of people are just afraid to use their insurance. And I always tell them, you've been paying into this for the last 5 years. It's the whole point of paying into it. So your rates legally should not go up by using your underinsured or underinsured motorist coverage.
Now, are you how many lawyers do you then employ at your firm?
It's myself and one other attorney, and then we have 6 staff.
6 staff. Okay. Do they have to have any type of like lawyer, or do they just kind of handle cases and distribute them to
The
you
staff
guys?
or the lawyers?
Well, the staff. Do they have to have any type of like lawyer licenses? Or
No,
anything
so
like that, or-
if paralegals have to get certificates,
Okay.
if they're official paralegals.
Okay.
We have 2 official paralegals. We have a case manager, and then we have an intake specialist. The intake specialist doesn't need to have any type of certification, but to be an official paralegal, to put paralegal on your title, yes, you have to go to school and get certified for that.
Now, do you have a favorite case in mind over the last 13 years of business, or a favorite family or person you've been able to help out?
Yeah, I'd probably say, so before I did injury law, I used to do a lot of municipal work, meaning I used to represent businesses against the city of Chicago.
Okay.
So we used to fight city of Chicago all the time. I'd say Mimi was probably my all-time favorite case. I probably didn't make any money on it, but it's still probably my number 1 favorite case, favorite person, and we still keep in touch till today.
Is there anything you could share that stood out on that case that made you guys?
Yeah, it was
connect
on
so
the
much?
news, so I can share
Oh, okay.
anything on that. So Mimi is originally from Thailand, little short old lady, barely 5 foot tall. She owns a chicken shack in the northwest side of Chicago. So she's in the hood, and it's a small spot. There's not even a place to sit down and eat. It's a
Wow.
little shack. So they were behind the counter. Some guy was ordering. Someone walks in, shoots the guy in the head 6 times.
Wow.
So as he's shooting, Mimi and her staff run in the back. One of her employees grabs his cell phone and calls the police. A few weeks later, Mimi gets a ticket from the city of Chicago because there's this very, very old, archaic law that states if you don't call the police from your landline, you get fined for that. Correct. It's a real law. It's a real ordinance in the city of Chicago. So I wasn't representing Mimi at the time. She saw the ticket. She was confused. She went to court. She's like, why am I getting a ticket? Someone got shot and killed in my store. And they're like, all right, just give us, $300 and we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
So little did they know, little Mimi, not a punk. Little Mimi said, basically, go fuck yourself, right?
Yeah.
I'm not paying this shit. So city of Chicago being city of Chicago that it is, because she fought back, they put her in what's called license revocation. That basically means they were going to revoke her license. If
Yeah.
you revoke your license, your business gets shut down.
Yeah.
Mimi lives off this business. Her employees live off this business. Another thing they didn't know about Mimi is the hood loved Mimi. She's the type, if you're broke, she's still going to give you the food.
Yeah.
If there's any events, she's supplying the food. If you need a place to stay, Mimi got you. So the hood loves Mimi. And Mimi knew one of my clients. So my client called me and said, hey, man, I think the city's railroading this lady. Can you help her out? I'm like, whatever. People always say that, but I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, man, I'll talk to her and see what's up. So she called me frantic, and they're trying to shut my business down. And I'm like, no, this doesn't sound right. I said, send me the paperwork. Long story short, she sent me the paperwork. Sure enough, these, people were, the city was trying to revoke her over this. And I'm like, no. I'm like, cool, I got you. I'm gonna take this case on. I didn't take no money from her or nothing. I just felt like they were railroading this poor old lady for no reason. She didn't do anything wrong. So I already knew about this ordinance. I've seen it before, and I fought against it before. But people don't believe me when I say this really exists. So I did a lot of this work. So I knew all the city attorneys. I knew, all the supervisors and all that. So I signed up the case. I called the lawyers, and I basically said, dude, this is bullshit. I'm fighting this. There's no way in hell. They're trying to say, give us a couple $100. Well, I said, no, we're not paying anything. It's out of principle. So the power of social media, I went on social media and I just blasted the city of Chicago. So I'm kind of known for that.
Yeah.
The city knew me. I'm the type, I was always blasting the city of Chicago, but I went in on them on this one. And about 2-3 days later, I get a phone call from Channel 2 News, and they're like, hey, someone sent us your Facebook post. We'd love to report on this. I said, look, I'd love to as well, but I got to talk to my client. At the end of the day, it's her choice. And before I hung up, and I was like, I'm curious, how did you get my number? Or how'd you find this? And they said, we can't tell you who, just know 2 Chicago police officers from the district sent this to us because they were pissed off that they were doing this to Mimi. The police in the area knew Mimi as well. So just to show you how pissed off people were at the city of Chicago. So I called Mimi. At first, she was hesitant. Chicago's tough, and she was scared of retribution from the city. So I said, look, Mimi, it's your choice. We'll do whatever you want. But just know if they do any retribution, we're going to highlight that too. And she's like, you know what, let me think about it and I'll let you know. And then she called me back the next day and she's like, you know what, Mo, I'm tired of the city doing this. I want to kick their ass in the public. Let's do it. I said, all right, bet, let's do it. So I called up Channel 2 News. So they started doing their investigating. They reached out to the city. City's like, oh, no, it's a big misunderstanding. So they called me up. They thought like we were lying. I said, okay, check your email in 2 minutes. I sent them the ticket where it says you didn't call 911 from a landline. I said, bro, here's the ticket right there. They call the city back. City tells them, well, it was just a ticket. It was a misunderstanding. We're not coming after her license. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, cool. I said, check your email again. I sent them the letter that literally says, please put Mimi's business in revocation proceedings. I said, here you go, sir. This is all in writing. Like, there's nothing I'm making up here. As soon as the Channel 2 News investigator saw that, he's like, oh, this is bullshit. I said, I told you, we're not lying here. So sure enough, we got to Mimi's spot. I knew they were coming to film, so I told Mimi, yo, bring the hood out. Bring everybody out. We're going to make a scene out of this, and we're going to just really come after the city of Chicago. So we brought a bunch of the local activists out. They had signs out. Brad, I forgot what his name, from Channel 2 News. They ran like a whole investigative special on a Friday night. And as we're shooting, the city got wind that we were shooting, and they called the investigator from Channel 2 News, and they were begging them, please don't run with this. We'll dismiss it, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, hell no, we're not doing this. You guys had your chance. We need to expose you guys. So sure enough, they ran a special, and he was slick. He ran it on a Friday night. So they ran it, and then every other news channel caught wind of it, and they were blowing up their media team all weekend. So they had to work overtime. And I went back to City Hall the next week. So some of the lawyers off the record were on my side because they're like, this is bullshit. But I was like enemy number one in City Hall for like 2 weeks. And I walked in just smiling, right? I'm like, and they're just looking at me like, you son of a bitch, you wreaked havoc for 2 weeks here. They called us up, said we're going to dismiss all charges. And they never messed with her again. They never came after her. And she didn't have to pay anything. And she wanted to pay me for my work just because Mimi's just an awesome person. And I'm like, Mimi, we're good. Like, we had a blast. We got exposure out of this. Like, dude, I'm good. She's like, no, I have to pay you. So she sent me a $200 check just because of her pride that I have to pay my lawyer. This was maybe 8-9 years ago. I still keep in touch with Mimi till today. I still visit her once in a while, but it's one of my favorite stories because to me, that's what lawyers are supposed to do.
Yeah.
We stand with people who are powerless, and we use our power and authority to fight back against the powers that be. And that for me was like my career highlight just because it really epitomized what lawyers do or are supposed to do.
Yeah, that's fire. Now, are you strictly business or what do you like to do for fun?
I'm a pretty simple guy. My business is fun for me. Growing my business is fun for me, right?
Yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time on that. But outside of that, I'd say I'm a diehard Bears fan. Like diehard. Yeah, I travel every year for them. I went to London for their game. I go to the Summerfest every year. I love to cook and barbecue. Also probably my biggest, that's probably my biggest hobby. I love to cook, and barbecuing and grilling, I do that all summer. Like that's
What do you
my
use
thing.
to grill?
Oh, I'm a Weber guy. I got
Weber?
3 grills. I got a grill, 2 grills, a smoker. I'm all Weber. I only use Weber grills. I'm not a fan of Traegers or the digital ones.
Yeah, I gave
It's
my
not real
sister a Traeger.
barbecuing, bro. Like, I'm sorry, but using a Traeger is just not real barbecue to me.
Yes. What up? We're finishing a pod. So you guys good? This is my next pod. So my next question then, are you a fan of the UFC?
I am actually. We actually do content for.
Below.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I saw him liking your post, and I was like,
Yeah, Bilal's my guy.
I've been trying forever to get him on the podcast. I got a couple UFC guys on, and I've been connected with a few people in Chicago. Like, we can get him on. We'll get him on for you. And I actually, we got a picture at you. I don't think you were there with me.
Bilal's a great guy.
Phenomenal individual. And
One of the hardest working people. I know I have his schedule because we got to work around that. His routine is incredible.
Yeah.
His routine is incredible. It's mind-boggling. He's the hardest working dude I know.
Dude, I fell in love with the UFC when I had to have been like 11 or 12 years old. It was Anderson Silva fighting Chris Weidman. And actually in that fight, Anderson Silva went on to break his own leg. He got shin checked. And then coming to Chicago a couple years ago, I really started to take up jiu-jitsu. And the community around here is phenomenal. I train at 10th Planet Lombard and Arctic Training Center. And
Arctic?
Arctic, yeah. They got Danya. And
That's
she's
my girl. Danny's my girl.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know Danny
Yeah,
really well.
absolutely, bro.
Yeah,
So
Danny's my homie.
it's a
She's a beast.
she's a beast. She just got her black belt.
Yeah, she
and
did.
In addition to that, I think of just the overall community of Chicago people. When I came to Chicago, I was like, man, this is one of the biggest cities in the world. But somebody told me, they were like, Chicago is a big, small city.
It is.
It's a big, small city, bro. And it's really cool to see all that. I think my last question I always like to ask everybody is, what is your favorite movie if you have one?
Godfather.
Godfather?
Part 1.
You give me that type of vibe.
Yeah, Godfather Part 1 I think is the greatest movie ever.
Yeah.
It is slightly better than 2. Some will argue that 2 is better. But Brando as the Godfather, just the symbolism, just the dialogue, the shot scenes, because we do content, I pay attention more now to just lighting and zoom in, zoom out. The emotion that a videographer can elicit with no words, I think is incredible. Yeah. And I think The Godfather just does that better than any movie. So
that's fire.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to leave the guests before we hop off?
No, I mean, not really. Yeah, you can find us on social media, Mo the Lawyer on TikTok, Instagram. If you're involved in an accident, give us a call. We'll definitely take care of you.
Let's go. This was fire. And if you guys like this legal content, maybe we'll get some more in the future. Subscribe and leave some likes, comments, and we'll go from there. Cool?
Awesome.
Peace out. Thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir.